Are we likely to see more ratings downgrades in the wake of coronavirus, do you think?
Oh, there's no question about that. We've got 40 countries right now that are on negative outlook. We have never in the history of Fitch Ratings had 40 countries on negative outlook at the same time. That comes after we've already downgraded in the first half of the year 33 sovereigns, and we've never downgraded 33 in any given year, so we've already done it in half a year. So this is a shock unlike any other, at least from a sovereign credit perspective, and we're not done yet. At least that's what the outlooks are telling us.
What is the biggest concern from Fitch's point of view? Is it that nations are carrying too much debt?
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. It's a fiscal deterioration, the likes of which we've never really seen before. We rate 119 countries, and all 119 are going to see a fiscal deterioration this year. So a weakening of the fiscal position in terms of whether they're running a deficit or a surplus. The surplus will be smaller, the deficit will be bigger, and the debt numbers will be higher, all of which is perfectly understandable. Because they're dealing with the coronavirus and the urgent need to spend money to address that and to support sections of the economy in terms of supporting labor markets and companies in distress. I mean, our concern really is what happens after we get to the other side of the coronavirus crisis period, and which governments are going to be able to bring those debt levels back down. And I think that's the focus that we have, and that'll be the factor that really determines where the ratings go.
China, Australia, Germany recently revised up. Why?
We're just starting to see some better numbers in terms of those countries. I think China is probably the easiest one. It wasn't a huge increase, a little bit less than 1% growth to a little bit more than 1% growth. Pretty clear now that the recovery in China, it's going to be subject to setbacks as recoveries are everywhere, but it's looking pretty convincing in terms of at least the manufacturing sector and the supply side of the economy. As is the case elsewhere, demand is lagging behind, including external demand. But nevertheless, we saw enough to bring that growth forecast up a little bit higher than 1% for China.
Brazil and the UK downgraded further. Does this directly relate to the handling of COVID-19 in these particular countries where we know have had huge spikes in numbers?
Well, there's certainly a lot of criticism in both of those countries. I suppose Brazil is really more focused on a domestic political scandal than it is in terms of the coronavirus itself. But nevertheless, there's a fair bit of criticism as to how the authorities, at least the president, has been handling the coronavirus, if not lower levels of government. And as you know, the UK, there's been a lot of criticism within the UK as well for how it's handled it. But I don't think that's really the basis of our changes in growth forecasts. I mean, those are really based on the data that we've seen and how we expect that to unfold in the next couple of quarters.